It's like The Purge, but way boring because it's in VR.
Because it's all just guys on the couch beating each other up.
Playing VR, and it's just basically someone like this going.
I mean, think about it. This movie is a lot like that, but it's smartly, it goes right into the headset. Thankfully, there's that really cool animation. Because it'd be really stupid to watch this movie just with people flailing around.
The dumbest parts of the movie are that.
when he's just like feeling
all of that stuff is so later.
And it's like the sound design's bad, so it's just like watching a guy like fondle space. It's like.
Welcome, everybody, to this month's edition of the Nerd Enthusiast Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Dane DeFeo. I'm here with my good buddy, Mike DeGiorgio.
Hey, Dane.
We're going to talk about a little movie, small movie, art house, called Ready Player One. Ready Player One, I chose this movie because obviously there's a video game element to it, but there's so much shit in this movie that we're never going to be able to get to. So yeah. we'll try to keep it short, but.
I wondered why you asked me to do this movie initially. I said, when did this movie come out? I thought it came out a lot longer ago too, but it was only 2018, which is surprising.
Right. It's only 3 years ago.
Yeah. It feels like it came out like 6 years ago plus.
Because everything from basically 2020 before is the past time.
Yeah. It was like 10 years between 2020 and 2021. So yeah, I can understand. Now
I saw this movie in the theaters in an IMAX. Because I give Spielberg a blank check every year, and he tells me how many tickets I have to buy, and I go see the movie. How did you watch it? Did you watch it in the theaters?
I did. I didn't get to see an IMAX though, which is kind of disappointing because it's definitely an experience in the theater compared to, streaming or at home. Thinking back on it, especially that opening sequence, the race is really something. The sound design is something in a theater. That's what's worth the price of admission.
That whole sequence sold me on the movie when I saw the trailer.
Yes.
Because just watching like the speed of like the DeLorean and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which a car, by the way, is not fast.
No. Well, I mean, Back to the Future, it only has to go to 87 to time travel. So it tells you enough that the car doesn't have to go that fast.
80 miles an hour.
I know. But back then, as a kid, you're like, wow, that's so fast.
It's hard. You don't get it back.
As a kid, we're like, wow, that's so fast. And then as an adult, you're like, wow, that's what I drive on the highway.
Pretty much.
That's what I cruise on the highway at.
So, all right. So this is so 2018 Spielberg movie. Big fan of Spielberg. And we were talking about actually before we started recording was, who could clear all the stuff from the movie. The only person I think that they would ever be able to make this movie, I think, is Spielberg. Nobody else would be able to get the amount of licensing that this movie has. Nobody.
Have you heard the story of why Spielberg even directed this or how he came to direct this?
I actually don't know that. I do know that he started working on it because I remember hearing about it like years before the movie came out. And I was excited for it because I found out what it was. But then they basically did an arduous process of producers clearing everything. And then that took like years to do.
From what I've been told, as my sources tell me, when it first was being basically up for auction, the rights to the book were up for auction and studios were bidding on it. When it was sold, Earnest Cline, the author, his two stipulations were that, whatever, he and his buddy would get to work on the screenplay. And the second stipulation was that Steven Spielberg had to direct the film.
Huh.
So if he would not sell the rights to the book without Spielberg basically being attached to it. Right. Which is a pretty big ask, honestly, if you're just this, young author going, you know what? The only way I'm giving you this is if my favorite director, Steven Spielberg, gets to make it. And, I'm sure the studio's going, okay, hold on here. We can try and do that, but I can't imagine them saying, yes, we promise that this will happen. I'm sure it was.
What theater, what studio bought it? Who, I mean,
is it Warner Brothers that produced this?
I don't know. Seems like it might be. These are things we should know. And we can look them up. but it would require looking at
It would require going on the computer and looking up.
and that's not my style.
Dane DeFeo does not do research if he does
No,
not
I
have
don't.
to.
Basically, I watched the movie a couple of times over the course of a couple of years. And
Yeah,
then
it's,
so hard
it's
about
Warner Brothers produced it.
right. Obviously, Amblin.
Amblin and Village Roadshow. Yeah, you got the 17 production companies behind this.
Right. And also a bunch of visual effects companies. Remember back in the day when only one visual effects company was needed?
Well, and it's crazy because like not Warner Brothers obviously doesn't own all the licenses to all these references in this film. So you have to think about that logistically. Like imagine the poor group that had to go around and call these offices and say, hey, we're making Ready Player One and, you know, we have these 15 characters from your universe that we're wanting to license. What do we need to do?
Size battle.
Yeah, exactly. How much do we need to give you to let us use these characters like this? And I wonder if some of it was probably just, you know, goodwill saying, yeah, you can use, you know, Pac-Man if you want. It's fine. We don't, you know, you don't have to pay us 10 grand to use, you know, Goro or whatever in the film. But I'm sure most of them were like, yeah, you're going to pay to put that character in there. And I mean, I would.
They're all big. There's everything from Master Chief to Batman to, I'm trying to think of things that are just so ingrained in an IP's image that you have never give it up.
Oh
never give it up.
When you have Overwatch, you know, you have, you know, big video game company assets that you're talking about. But again, it serves as a good advertisement too. You think about that. And that's how I would have pitched it as a, you know, as an intern being like, look, this film is going to be a good advertisement for your products in general because everybody's going to see this film this year. So what did you think of Ready Player One?
Oh, Ready
overall,
Player One.
What did you think of it? I mean,
yeah,
in theaters,
yeah,
and we've talked about this a little bit. I hadn't read the book yet when I saw the film, which I think is honestly better.
Okay.
Overall, for me, it was better. I like the film more than I like the book, but I know some people will flip out about that concept, but I just did because the film is so visual and it's so well directed. The cinematography is so interesting in it. It's hard to visualize that just from the book. You can't get the same experience for me, at least, just from reading the book. And the book's not bad, but I'll say this, it's like there's so many 80s references and there are some huge, I mean, there's a huge shift from the book to the movie. And I just think the movie visualizes this world so well, the Oasis and everything else about it. The book can't quite capture that in your, for me, it didn't create that in my imagination. And maybe that hurt me because I'd seen the movie first and I said, well, I remember it this way because Spielberg made it this way. And, you know, Ernest Cline's Oasis just wasn't that interesting, you know, just based on his writing.
I know that one of the criticisms of the movie compared to the book is that a lot of the 70s stuff went away because apparently there was a bunch more 70s stuff and the movie's definitely rooted in 80s.
There's these video sections from the book where part of the you know, gimmick, the gaming is like you have to reenact scenes from movies like line by line and performance by performance to pass these tests. And I think it's War Games and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You have to, Parzival literally has to reenact these scenes from these movies in the book. And it's like, it's funny in the book, but like, I just don't know. I just can't see it translating that well in the film itself. Like I'm trying to picture these sequences and they would have been fun for for a montage maybe, but having to watch Ty Sheridan try and reenact Matthew Broderick in War Games or whatever. I don't know. I just don't know how that, I don't even know if the technology supports it as well as it needs to. I mean, yeah, you're talking about a game about avatars essentially, but I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. And I don't think it's needed. I really don't. I mean, the Shining recreation you get from me was enough of like, that blew me away. You know, seeing that when that happened at the, I know a bunch of us, our friends and I, we were just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And how well it was recreated and the use of old and new footage merging the two mediums is pretty masterful to me, you know, and you're right. I think Spielberg's probably one of the only people that could do that. And who better to reference Kubrick than Spielberg, you know? I don't know if there's anyone more deserving than Spielberg for something like that. Now, some have said that this feels like a Zemeckis film too.
Yeah,
What do
well,
you think?
well, see, so that's actually why I think I think that's why I enjoy the movie so much, because I grew up with um, uh, these movies that were all made in kind of the same way of like, well, I mean,
The assembly line of
the
Hollywood.
assembly line of like the 80s movie that, and
No, you're right.
they're all great,
Yeah.
but I think I know you're talking what I think you know what I'm talking about, which is like it's like they all, because they were all produced by Spielberg, they all
Mhm.
had real high end shit. Everything was done for real in the sense that it was, things, expense wasn't spared to get the things real enough that it was had to be real.
Mhm.
So
No, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. And there's something, there's like a special, and I get why Klein was so enraptured by this time period, because it was some of the best time for movies ever. It really was. It was the best. It was one of the best times to be a moviegoer as a kid. And I mean, you and I were a little bit young for some of the movies and some of the references that are in this film, but we were around for most of it, so and this movie is made for people like us who are nerds. I mean, it's a nerd's wet dream, this film. It really is. There's no other way about it. You have to see it 17 times to get all the references, but there's something in there for everyone if you grew up watching any of this stuff from the 80s and 90s.
so to me, and I was going to ask you about that. So it's almost like a young adult novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Sort of like a Hunger Games idea of you take a concept and wrap it around like young adults or, like late teenage people, simply to ground it in that demographic.
Right.
As opposed to considering that almost anybody could be like, you could kind of fit any age group into the movie and have it make sense the way that the plot works. It's just, it's definitely geared towards younger people.
Absolutely.
Um,
and it fits the Spielberg mold. I mean, it's the typical hero's journey from, that his movies have. You know what I mean? It's a dystopian future, which, apparently he likes to do occasionally from time to time. Mm-hmm. It still surprised me, though, initially that he was tackling this project, just because I didn't think it was a book that like Spielberg picked up and was like, yeah, I got to make this thing. I got to make this film because it's got all these references. I feel like he would be the kind of person to be like, I don't really want to do this film because it's referencing most of the films I produced or had a hand in my life. You know what I mean? Because think about it. How many films has he been attached to?
Got a lot of stuff. I think he
right.
a lot of stuff from the
right. And he didn't want most of his films referenced, but it was almost impossible because of just some of the nature of the scenes.
Right.
Between the Jurassic Park, the T-Rex, and I think there's a Jaws reference in the book that he wanted completely out.
Right.
So
I actually think of any Jaws references that I can think of.
But why wouldn't you? Yeah, like you were saying, the 70s reference. But why wouldn't you have, Jaws in the film?
I think too the main character's obsession with pop culture. Obviously the writer Ernest Cline's a big fan of it. But the fact that pushes forward and drives the world of the Oasis as he creates it is big, because, and that's why, like you said, like really only Spielberg could do it, because no one else would let him get the shit involved. Because if you didn't have the time machine from Back to the Future, then you'd have to change the car. It wouldn't matter that much, but there would be something missing, and everyone that loved it would hate it. So if you couldn't do all of it, like if you literally couldn't have, and Pizza Hut is in the movie, and Coca-Cola, and these things, like if it was just, cola, it would just, it would miss it. It would feel so fake and wrong, because especially in video games, unless you're like a Grand Theft Auto, for years, every time you put a game in, there was some sort of like a product placement or buy-in or something.
Mm-hmm.
Metal Gear Solid had instant cup noodles and shit.
Right.
You look at it, go like there's no reason why it would be, but it is. So
now, and here's the thing: if you don't really care for the carousel of Easter eggs, I don't think you're gonna like this movie. I don't think that this movie's gonna it really isn't going to be tickle everyone's fancy, because it's a never-ending carousel of Easter eggs, and literally the movie's about Easter eggs and references. That's what it is. There's no way around it.
Right.
You and I get on it because we love this shit. But the average person, I think the average person who is not a fan of a lot of these movies or is not a nerd looks at this film and goes,
Well,
it's okay, because the love story is not great in it. The
made almost $600 million. So somebody definitely watched it.
plenty of people watched it.
Yeah.
Plenty of people watched it, but doesn't mean it's to me, I think it's not a great movie for a casual moviegoer. If you don't understand if you miss a lot of the references, I don't think the movie resonates quite as strongly with you. Because let's be honest, the whole taking down the bad guys plot line is not, it's not award winning. You know what I mean? It's not.
I got to tell you, if you ask me what dystopian future do I want to live in,
this one
is 100%
with the VR haptic feedback.
Yeah. Give me the box.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm
Light District. Okay,
I mean, I don't think we're too far off from the the VR haptic feedback suits. Let's be honest. I think we're pretty close to that.
Omnidirectional treadmill, which is those things that they run on in the movie. So those are real. Someone has definitely made like one of those bodysuits.
Right.
Sucks and doesn't work real well.
Well,
but
I just can't stop thinking of all the lawsuits when these come out and people like are getting beat up by games.
Right.
The settings are dialed too high, so people are getting gunshot bruises and things like that. Just have to be better at the game. That's all.
The first loser to die playing Mortal Kombat.
Right. Imagine like you turn up the settings. Oh, you're not a man until you play in the hardest haptic feedback setting. People are getting killed.
It'll become like the knockout game in a way. Like look, you have to play Street Fighter on.
See, we have a movie concept here. It's
right. That's right. That's right. It's like The Purge, but way boring because it's in VR.
Because it's all just guys on a couch beating each other up.
Playing VR, and it's just basically someone like this going.
I mean, think about it. This movie is a lot like that, but it's smartly, it goes right into the headset. Thankfully, there's that really cool animation. Because it'd be really stupid to watch this movie just with people flailing around.
The dumbest parts of the movie are that.
when he's just like feeling
around. That stuff is so later.
And it's like the sound design's bad, so it's just like watching a guy like fondle space. It's like
when he's
what is this?
At the end of the movie across the servers, which by the way, I don't know if you can go cross server, cross platform, but we won't get into that.
That feature is not enabled most times, but in the future it is.
Right. If anything, the PlayStation version of it, no one will hear it because they
no cross-play for those kids.
They have to get involved in Second Life or PlayStation Home or whatever that one is. But like when he's talking and I think he's on Mount Doom or something, which by the way, it wasn't until the last time I watched the movie that I realized Mountain Doom I thought was an absolutely generic name for like the place that it was. Didn't occur to me it's from the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But
another reference.
And everyone, and he's like, you got to rise up, and then he holds up the boombox and stuff like that. When you see him in real life talking, and he's got,
you're like, yeah, he sucks.
He's like, we're gonna fight, and I'm just like, this is fucking lame. Thank God we have photorealism in the game because this is stupid.
And I said it before, you can't make this movie in the 80s. Imagine how that would have looked in the 80s. the CG powering up, the CG would have been so bad that the everything about it, you would have saw all the matte lines on everything. You would have had maybe 3 or 4 references.
What was that video? Yeah, the Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing.
Yes.
Okay.
But
so hold on a second. Let's get a little bit back on the rails here. So the plot of the movie, something we probably should have talked about in the beginning of the movie.
I mean, everybody knows the plot.
Yeah, I guess. So
by now, you should know the plot.
Cut it out.
Yeah, I mean, if you said $600 million this movie?
$600 million.
Enough people have seen it. They know the plot. They should know the plot.
I think. Yeah.
Literally, it's kind of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This film, you have to get the golden keys,
right,
to win the Oasis. You got to get the keys to win the Oasis. I mean, which is a ridiculous concept in itself, but I mean, that's one way to get people to play your game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I
If
thought
you
about
win
that.
this game,
You win.
you
half
win
a
my
trillion
fortune.
dollars.
Yeah, there's $10 billion waiting for you at the end of this. It's like there's a lot of people going to play
And you
that game
get to
then.
be God of the place that you live in.
It kind of makes me wonder why this hasn't been done yet.
I don't know if you know. I'll tell you about
I'm surprised that EA hasn't tried this yet. You know, this is like EA or Ubisoft hasn't tried to create this environment yet. But I feel like we're predicting the future here. I think this is going to happen soon.
Yeah, me too. This is like what I was talking about before with Bitcoin.
Yes.
Missed the
It's going to
boat.
happen. And then there's going to be the, what are they called? What's Sorrento's centers called? They're the loyalty centers or whatever, which is hilarious. Yeah. IOI loyalty centers, which is hilarious.
You know what annoyed me was I when I first saw it, the name IOI, I'm looking at it going, that's stupid. And then later on, I'm like, that's interesting because it's binary. And then later on, I thought, that's stupid.
It's stupid, but it's smart. And it's stupid for making me think about it.
Okay, so hold on a second here. So let's actually talk about a little bit about the cast here.
Yes, that's what I was going to talk about too.
Ty Sheridan, Sheridan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
had you seen him in anything before this other than
the only thing
X-Men Apocalypse?
Before this was Mud.
That's what I had saw too.
I'd seen Mud before anything else he was in.
And he was like 12 in that.
Some. And because he's only like 25 years old.
Yeah, he's a baby in Mud though.
You're 21 years old. And then he's the new Cyclops, or the old Cyclops, because Disney bought Fox. So we probably won't ever see those guys.
new old Cyclops.
Yeah, the new old Cyclops. Olivia Cook, the one that plays Artemis, the chick on the motorcycle, I had never seen before. I don't know if I'm going to see again, but
she's in a lot of stuff.
Ty Sheridan and other shit. He's in other things.
She's in a ton of stuff.
Is she?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any of it?
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the first thing I ever saw her in was Bates Motel, that TV series.
Oh, is she in Bates Motel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. I saw that first.
She's the TV Emma. She plays Emma in Bates Motel. She's very good in that.
Is that the girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay.
She's in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a fun little film. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she's in a ton of stuff, and I'm pretty sure she has a big project coming out soon. But you're going to see her again. Don't worry.
Okay.
She won't disappear into obscurity.
She already has, because I ain't seen her in anything else. It's one of the biggest movies she's ever been in. And I'm shitting on her. So
she's in. Oh, you know what? She's in the prequel Game of Thrones series, House of the Dragon. That's what she's in.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll see her in that. If you watch it, you'll see her. So what did you think of her in this?
I didn't care. Like, enough to where, I mean, it's not necessarily her fault, but
I didn't care.
I didn't. Yeah,
it's not your fault. You sucked.
I mean, she was the girl that's got to get saved, and she does some shit that does. But
yeah, and honestly, the book does her character far worse, if that's possible.
Really?
Yeah, the book even like diminishes her, I think, a little even further than the movie does. So I give Spielberg a little kudos on that, because at least he gave her more to do, and she wasn't. You don't meet her in the book until like the very, very end. Like they don't meet face to face until like the very, very end of the book compared to the movie, which is like halfway through, which I like. I like them.
I thought that's why the movie to me reminded me of like a very typical like young adult novel or whatever, because basically, and let's see if we can get this. So basically, there's a contest, and then the main character breaks out of this contest, and then there's a resistance. And then that character leads their resistance to glory at the end of whatever the movie or show is. It's a very typical thing that's been happening a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I didn't know, and it ruined actually Mortal Engines for me. Did you ever see that movie?
Mm-hmm.
It's not great. And I remember seeing the trailer and
the trailers looked interesting. The world looked interesting.
Cool. Right, but then it just turned out to be the same thing where I'm like,
You keep going to these movies, so they're going to keep making them.
I go to that movie. I saw that movie on.
I saw it on Blu-ray.
In some way, I paid for it. So,
but here's the truth. I mean, people can argue, and this is a little off topic, but it's kind of what you're saying. Like, people can say, "Oh, this is just more typical Hollywood," sort of what you're saying. But these are the movies that people are going to see. So in a way, we bought this movie. We paid for this movie ourselves because with our wallets, we've spoken that we like these movies. So these movies are going to continue to get made whether we like it or not, basically, because they are making money. So these type of movies are going to continue to get made.
All right, so going to some other actors too. The two big ones that I wanted to bring up.
Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben Mendelsohn and Mark Rylance. Now, Ben Mendelsohn.
It's always a bad guy. Why?
He's always a bad guy.
Why is he always a bad guy? He seems like a cool guy.
He does.
He's got that face.
I saw him was in The Dark Knight Rises.
Hmm.
He was the guy that Dane crushes his head.
Yes, not a great, not a great memory, but
really, the first time I ever really paid attention to him was in Bloodlines. Did you see Bloodlines?
Yes.
Bloodlines is a damn good show.
Yes.
And it kind of falls by the wayside because, there are other bigger name actors in it, but it's like, if you don't know about it, it's straight drama, that show.
Right.
It's a straight drama. Almost nothing funny happens in that fucking show. So, but he's really good in it.
Yes. And he's been around forever too. That's the thing. People don't realize.
But I've never seen him before.
Dude's been acting since the 80s. He has, and his career just started to skyrocket after Rogue One was when it really took off. Because after you're in a Star Wars movie, you basically, you pretty much can go anywhere.
Star Wars, and then he was also the good guy in Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, he was the Talos or whatever.
He was a Skrull.
Mm-hmm.
Skrulls are the bad guys, good guys, and Skree are the bad guys.
Yeah. Who knows, really? Supposedly bad, but not bad.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to see him a lot now.
Which is okay. I like him. And then Mark Rylance plays Halliday, the creator of the OASIS in the movie.
Mm.
Now, first time I saw him was Bridge of Spies.
Mm.
Was the only other Spielberg, which was the first Spielberg movie. Again, I'd seen it in theaters, and I'm looking at this guy going, he's fucking good in this movie. And I think he was nominated for something for that. And then he did BFG, which I liked. Actually, I saw that in the theaters as well. That was kind of like, it was almost like it was trying to be a kid's movie.
Yes.
But I don't know. It didn't look enough like a kid's movie. It almost looked like too good to be a kid's movie.
Right.
So
I have very vague memory of that. I've seen it probably twice now, and I have such a vague memory of that movie. It just comes with being a parent. You just forget everything.
But it's right.
You just forget everything.
Like, it's definitely Roald Dahl. It's definitely
right.
It's definitely like an older kind of story where
yes,
like there's this character, he's mythical, but he meets the Queen of England. You know what I mean? Like shit like that in that movie. Very Spielberg too, if you really think about it. And then he was in Dunkirk.
I remember that. Yes,
he was good in Dunkirk. He was fine. He wasn't Dunkirk I thought could have been a little bit better. I think the problem with Dunkirk was Dunkirk was the last, and I told my dad this, and he didn't understand what I meant. But I said he should go watch the movie, and he liked it. Dunkirk is the last act of a movie stretched
into a full movie. Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah,
2-hour movie or 3-hour movie. Yeah. And because of that, there isn't the typical setup of that's the character, the protagonist, the character that I'm meant to identify with. This is the character's journey. It was just kind of like these were the events. And in a way, and in a way, because there was that ticking, tick, 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 tick throughout the whole movie, it was like the world's most expensive, low budget movie. You know what I mean? Like art house movie.
Yeah. We don't have the budget to do the full event, but we're going to show you the last part of this event. That's really, really exciting. Right. You have to stay excited for the whole movie.
Exactly.
Something's going to happen.
That really happened in that movie.
Well, back to Ready Player One. It's got Simon Pegg in this movie.
Does have Simon Pegg in the movie, yeah.
T.J. Miller.
T.J. Miller.
Really annoying character who's hilarious.
He got in a lot of trouble, though. You won't see him in another movie.
I was going to say, you might not see him for a while.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You know, Lena Waithe plays H. I
don't know anything about her. She's pretty young, though, right?
I don't know what else she's been in other than like Queen and Slim. I think she's in Master of None too, I think. But yeah, she's kind of indie, I would say. Not indie, but like she's doing some more of the like independent TV type stuff.
Now, here was a question that I had because we were talking about the way that the movie looked. Okay, so yeah, Janusz Kaminski still shot the movie. He's still shooting all of Spielberg's stuff.
Got it, man.
Still.
Didn't have John Williams, though, scoring this because Williams was busy with another project.
Or something. He was doing something.
Yeah, he was busy doing something else.
So did he get Alan Silvestri?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Alan Silvestri did Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, which I think you could figure that out just by.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little.
Yeah, the connections are all,
There's a lot of stuff.
It's like a homecoming for so many,
There's also way more popular music in the movie than I've probably ever heard in a Spielberg.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point.
Like ever. So.
Jump, we're not going to take it. Faith, Tears for Fears.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. Blue Monday. There's a ton of.
There's a Joan Jett song in the beginning. I think in the beginning of the movie. And you know what? I think that's part of what sold me in the trailer as well, because there's the
Jump montage.
Yeah.
It's a really good trailer. The teaser is fantastic.
It's a really good trailer. Whoever did it's fucking good at their job.
Whoever did it needs a raise.
What are they talking about? Oh, the movie. So
35 millimeter.
Right, yeah, so he shoots 35 millimeter. Everybody kind of knows this. In order to shoot this movie, he kind of did something different, which apparently has become much more common now because everything's digital. And the cameras that they use have gyroscopes built into them, so the cameras know where they are in 3D space. So they can see instantaneously what the footage looks like on the monitors.
Right.
Spielberg, for a vast majority of the movie, didn't do that. But for the stuff that he kind of had to do it with, apparently that was new that he did. Now, the one that confused me as to how they did it, and I watched it recently, was, you remember when they're going through the archives and he's scrubbing the archives and then he's changing angles?
Yes.
He literally shot that with 7 or 8 cameras at the exact same time. That's
one way to do it.
If you're going to do it with cameras, or you
do it practically, yeah.
And you fake it. But in the case of the movie, and I watched that, that's what was interesting, but the behind the scenes stuff I saw, it was just, and I counted, it was like 8 or 9 cameras, and they just cut between them like old fashioned Matrix style.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like the Matrix. That's great.
Wouldn't even do that anymore. Now, apparently they've done that. That's how they're doing the US Open, which I think is happening right now. It just happened. But they set up, and you probably saw this on DP Review, was they set up a bunch of cameras to get that bullet time effect. Like they did that for real time, which is kind of.
That's why film is so magical, because, and I just remember seeing the behind the scenes stuff for Matrix way back when, we're talking 99, like seeing that technology was like, oh, wow. So that's how they do it. It's just a bunch of pictures being taken at once basically on like a plane. They have the camera set up on different planes, dimensions, to take photos at an interval. And like, I couldn't wrap my head around that. Even when I saw it as a kid, I was like, I don't understand. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, I see how they did that. Just took a bunch of pictures and put them all together and post. Okay. You're like, okay.
Do you know who hates it? The editor.
Oh, you're not kidding. That's why I was always curious to know how to do it. And then when you find out how to do it, you're like, nobody wants to do this.
Nobody wants to do that.
But if you're paying me enough, I will happily sit down and tweak this frame by frame for you so that it's perfect.
Spins around and you go, look, I have this shot right up Agent Smith's crotch. Are we using that one? If not, we'll use the one next to it.
Well, what's funny, and it's not really even funny, but you don't really appreciate how much work VFX is now. And the average person can't understand it. But like when you go and watch a movie, and Ready Player One even has this too, but when you go and watch a movie like Avengers, and when you see the raw footage versus the finished, they're not even the same thing. It's like that's 90% of that didn't even exist. It was a guy in a blue or a suit with a green background, and now it's a war. It's like, it's insane what the VFX team has to come up with. And even for this movie, it's like, it's impressive work, and you really don't get enough credit.
Well, what's happened, I think, is since, I don't want to say Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings, especially if you watch it now, some of it falls apart a little bit, the graphics of it, but at one point in the last 10 or 15 years, movie special effects have gotten to the point to where they kind of don't matter anymore. Like
Right.
anything can be done.
Right.
They've been saying this for a reason, but no, like really now, anything can be done with the right vision and the right direction in
Right.
doing. And at this point, it's not just about making things look right. It's about using them effectively.
Absolutely.
That's why this movie, in my opinion, is so great. Because as much as there are, and this is a Spielberg thing, you get the big wide establishing shot and a bunch of shit is going on. But before he used to do that with thousands of extras.
Right.
Now, in this movie especially, the easy thing to do is to just start wide and then you have all these characters walking around. And you just point, and that's part of the fun of it. But when you look at a sequence like the race in the beginning of the movie, how it's all fake. It's 100% fake. But the difference is there, he's using cameras and choices and emphasizing moments in the image
Well, and
that make it work so much better than everybody else.
well, and he knows how to direct action better than probably anybody. That's the thing. So you give him the right tools and he's going to make you the best action sequence you could imagine, far beyond what any of us could even think of, because our tiny little brains can't function the way his does. You know, it's true though. I mean, and I think you and I both agreed on this, like Saving Private Ryan has always been one of my favorite films of his. And it's the film that to me got me really infatuated with filmmaking, because I just couldn't understand how anybody could make a movie that realistic, look that good and that realistic, but not be real, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so he has that pedigree of creating worlds that just are unbelievable. And so, yeah, and that's why this film becomes tailor-made for someone like him, because no, you're right. Nobody else can do sequences quite like he can, you know,
Right.
marrying the cinematography with the music, with the sound, with the action, with the performance. It's an all true art in all in itself.
He is really good at it.
What's he going to do next? That's the question.
He's doing, this was the last thing he did. And then the next thing that's coming out now is West Side Story, which I never fucking saw coming.
I didn't either.
I
would not have guessed that, but I guess, you know,
big fan
he's got a couple things in pre-production too. Well, Fabelmans and Kidnapping of Edgardo Maratara, which I don't know what that is. But he's producing like 3,000 things. That's the dude is producing everything under the sun. According to IMDb trivia, Spielberg has said this is like one of the 3 toughest movies he's directed, with Jaws and Saving Private Ryan being the other 2. And I'm betting that the technology is what made this
he literally
the
went
toughest.
to war and won. So, you know, probably. I mean, it's
I would think Schindler's List would be up there, but just content-wise would be difficult for him.
Well, but don't forget.
But I think technically this, you know, these movies were more difficult.
This movie's probably, I mean, this is an area that he's never even like set foot.
Well, the fact that he has to sit with a VR headset for some of the scenes to figure out what the hell's happening is, you know, it had to blow his mind some. You know, I remember there's shots of him laying on the floor looking at the scene going, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's really awesome. Oh. And I mean, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be like, are we in a video game or are we in the movie? What are we doing? You know, and Jon Favreau does the same thing to direct Lion King, which never had to be made, but was made anyway. Like he puts on a VR headset and directs the film that way, which is crazy to me. Like I still can't wrap my head around that, but you know, maybe one day I will get to do that. Because every time you discuss this movie, it's just going to become a discussion of the references, you know? Right. Because that's the big thing that's the big thing to talk about. You know, I mean, we could analyze the film in terms of, you know, artistic value and.
But we kind of did because, but there isn't much. There really isn't much to analyze with this movie.
No, and I honestly think it's a really good commentary on where we are as society anyway, and it's a good movie for a young male or female who feels out of place in the real world, but feels right in a virtual world. Like that's not a very uncommon, like that's a very realistic concept, which I think the movie nails very well.
There is, yeah, it really does actually. That's a very good point, actually.
You know, because think
I'll
about
have to do more with the book because the book's probably that's probably the big crux of the book.
right.
Um,
The
but
escapism is really interesting, and I think we all can relate to that. I think that's the one thing that makes this movie applicable to really any kid in a way, because
right.
we're so obsessed with these, and a lot of times we escape to these, and the movie captures that so well. It's like, why would I want to live in this junkyard when I can live in this paradise, the Oasis? I can live in this paradise, basically.
Well, it's
And you,
it's sort of like it's sort of like the Superman idea, where, in a sense, people want to be Superman, but
absolutely,
the truth is that they're Clark Kent and they have to live in the real world. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
if anything, the alter ego is what they hope actually gets something accomplished. But yeah, but that's, I don't know. The movie is good. It's better if, and this is my final
the
thought.
Dane rating, it's
Yeah.
good. The movie is good.
It's fine. It's fine. It's $200 million movie. That's pretty good. But it's more so, you know, the best parts of the movie are watching the movie and picking out the things that are in it.
Right.
It's not the most clever movie.
No,
It's
and that's
not
that was sort of my
written necessarily as
yes.
much as it serves the purpose of the movie. Now, the good things that are written about the movie, rather, the movie's well written in certain places, mainly, and from what I understand, the book's different, where like the first challenge is a race, like in video gaming, like it's always, you know, that's a real simple way to win something,
Right.
to win the gold star, to win first place, to win the key and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then later on, you know, the different trials and everything are very much video game centric. So much so that the Easter egg at the end, when I saw them playing Atari 2600, I said it's adventure, because it's the only, and having not read the book, my guess is that's in the book, is it's probably the first Easter egg, the final Easter egg at the end is probably adventure, unless it's not.
I think it's the same game. I think so. I don't remember now.
Well,
I think it is.
I knew that adventure had the first Easter egg in it.
Right.
That's
right.
What I know.
Right.
But if anything, it almost kind of seems like that everybody watching the movie would know that anyway. Or if you didn't know it, it didn't matter.
Right.
So,
well, the problem with the book is like there was like a challenge to get to the gate, and then the gate, and then there was a challenge beyond the gate. So it was like for each challenge there was like a challenge beyond the challenge. So it was like the book would have been impossible to adapt the story in 2.5 hours, because there was a challenge before a challenge for each 3 challenges, which was too much, you know. So the book focuses way more on the actual challenge aspect of the Oasis, and you're right, it's like the most of the book is stuck in the game, you know, very little to do with the real world. The battle isn't really even a thing in the book. It's not, there's no like there's no real like IOI type battle that goes down in the book. It's not like that at all, which is interesting.
Is there like an IOI?
Yeah, there's like people competing to get the, you know, Easter egg before.
And is it like a corporate thing where?
Yeah, it's similar to that, but there's not like, it's not like a big rebellion essentially. There's no like big rebellion type story, but I think that serves the film really well. I think that, you know, it's not, wouldn't be that fun just to watch the guys play video games for 2.5 hours. Let's be honest, it really wouldn't. It wouldn't be that fun as much as we might enjoy it. Like, it's just not that dynamic, you know. And I think they realize that.
Doesn't really play on the fact that, like, I guess, well, this is set in 2045, so it's 25 years from now, 24 years from now. So they don't really talk about things like the Twitch culture and stuff like that, but I kind of didn't see that coming. And
I've watched all of your Twitch streams.
Yeah, and I know
there's that line in there to Artemis.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah,
I watched all your Twitch streams. Yeah,
they do bring it up, which actually I was going to say there's no.
Yeah, there's not a lot of referencing, but it's that little tiny Easter egg. Where do you put this with Spielberg's other work? How do you rank this with his films? Is this one of his best?
It's one of his best as far as a big piece of entertainment. I mean, because don't forget, like, Jurassic Park is a great movie, and it's made really well, but it's a big summer blockbuster, and it works really well with that. So this is fine. This is better than a lot of his movies, actually, in my opinion. Last Indiana Jones comes to mind. That was no good.
Was that his fault or was that George Lucas' fault? Let's be honest. A little bit of both. I mean, I think it's Lucas's story, so.
I think that was society's fault for asking for that movie. Because it shouldn't.
You know, Harrison Ford wanted it more than anybody. Let's be honest, and he wants this next one more than anybody too.
They pay him. He jokes about it, but
oh, I know he wanted to play Deckard in Blade Runner. He wanted to play Indiana Jones again. He wants to play all these characters because he gets awesome paid. He likes playing Han Solo, even though he's grumpy about it. I mean, you throw 10 million at him, he'll say whatever you want. You know, he'll run around in his old man body and break a shoulder. I think he dislocated his shoulder or something. I don't know what he did. Yeah, I don't know what it was. I saw it on Twitter.
Forget he's like 75 years old. Stop it. Let that man rest.
He doesn't want to. Well, it's funny to me because there's like two Spielbergs. There's like the Spielberg that does like the Academy Award winning drama. And then there's like the Spielberg that's like the little kid Spielberg that does the Hooks, the Jurassic Parks, you know, the Tintin, you know, he does those movies. Even War of the Worlds I would put into like a crossover between, you know, the sci-fi big summer blockbuster type. But yeah, he does, you know, because Empire of the Sun, Saving Private Ryan, Munich, Schindler's List, War Horse, Lincoln, on and on and on and on. He does these two very different. That's why I was kind of surprised at this movie. But then I thought about it. I was like, no, it's on par for, you know, some of the stuff he's played in. You know,
it's definitely like, because I think right before this, I think the movie that he did was The Post. Maybe after he did, or The Post. The Post is right around this time. And The Post is a small movie. Has everybody in the world in it. Did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, great movie. It's really good. But
everybody in the world.
Everybody. Meryl Streep's mother is in the movie.
it's like Knives Out 2. Every time I see something on Knives Out 2, somebody else is cast. I was like, who else is in this movie? Yeah, it was right before. It was Post and BFG and Bridge of Spies were before that. He just doesn't stop working either, and he's not young.
No, but that's okay. See them all. I'll watch them all.
Well, they're going to make a Ready Player 2, most likely.
I think that's going to take 100 million years.
And it'll be like Avatar.
Yeah, well,
it'll take 10 years to even make the sequel, and then there'll be 7 more announced.
Right.
Ready Player 3, 4, 7, Ready Player 64. We'll just keep going. We'll be dead long before these movies made.
Ready 5, like Fast 5. From the
Our kids will be talking about Ready Player 10, you know. No, and that's just what it's going to be. It's going to become a franchise like, you know, Hollywood likes.
And that was this episode for this month's movie podcast for Nerd Enthusiasts Podcast Network. Check out the social medias as well as Patreon. So there's Instagram and Twitter and YouTube where you're probably watching this right now. Tune in next month when we'll be watching another movie. Don't know what it is yet. It's not going to be as difficult to explain as this movie.
To be determined at a later date.
And don't forget to check out Matt and Anthony and Brian and everybody else on the Nerd Enthusiast Podcast Network.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
No problem. Thank you very much. My name is This is Mikey D. And check us out next month. All right. Have a good one.